Hey man, I'm Chris with Phone Cats, and here is the red and blue Dodge and Burn deck. We're gonna go through all the cards, the ones that I'm running and the ones that I'm not running. But man, I'll be straight up honest with you and tell you that this deck has me so confused. There's like an infinite number of ways to build it, and the main two ones are gonna be, the two deciding factors are gonna be if you're running all the creatures or if you're not. There's a build that you can do to where you're running these Kiln Fiends and you're running these Wee Dragonauts, and you're just able to soar over or burn their creatures and swing in for damage. But it seems a little bit vulnerable and a little bit sprinty. So there's also an optional, like a basically creatureless build, because there's so few creatures in this deck. But let's get started. We're going to go through these cards one at a time. I'm going to show you the cards that I'm running in this deck right now and the ones that I'm not running. And yeah, let's kick this off. And one last thing, this is not the deck that I was playing yesterday in terms of this build, and I probably won't be playing this exact build tomorrow. So make sure that you're keeping your decks experimental and not just playing the same thing over and over. This expansion just came out, so don't get too settled in your ways already. No one knows what the best deck is for this meta. So this is a two-color deck, and you do have the option of running Terramorphic Expanses. Some people don't even like to run these in two-color decks because I could drop all four of these and put two more mountains and two more islands, and very rarely have mana issues. One of the advantages of running the Expanses is the fact that they thin your deck a little bit. So that's one less land card that you're going to draw down the line. They also shuffle your deck, so if you're running a build that has Future Sight in it, where you're playing with the top card of your library revealed, it's a little bit advantageous to throw in a shuffle mechanic. So if you're ever at a spot to where you can't cast the top card of your library, in a weird pinch, you could use a Terramorphic Expanse to shuffle your library and then get like a new look at cards. So it's kind of like in the Eldrazi deck when you have a Enchant of Moldiah, when you have an Oracle out and then you do any kind of land grab and you get closer to forests. So that's a weird little cutesy mechanic. Let's try to keep this based on casting cost because I like the way that plays out. You have the option of running 3 Pongifies. It's 1 blue, destroy target creature at instant speed, it cannot be regenerated, and then they put a 3/3 green ape into play. This is something that you want to save for super fatties, I believe. And yeah, something that is a huge threat that you can't take out with all your wipe spells. This deck has so many board wipe spells that will kill things on the field. It'll do like 2 damage, 3 damage, or X damage. So you want to take some super monster fatty and then get it back down to killing range by making it a 3/3 ape. I'm running 2 of those right now, but I have no qualms telling you that I have no idea what I'm doing with this deck. Alright, next up is Earthquake. This is the old school sorcery that just wipes the board. It deals with things that don't have flying and pings both players a little bit. You pay 1 red and X, and it deals X damage to each creature without flying and player. Most of the time, you're going to be able to Earthquake and wipe the board. Sometimes you're going to be playing the White Weenie deck and they're going to get the Champion of the Parish, and it's going to grow at a rate that outpaces your Earthquake. So, it's weird, man. Even in this deck of all board wipes, there's going to be times to where your opponent's creatures are going to grow so fast that you're fighting an uphill battle from the very beginning, especially if they went first. But this is your best chance. This deck is your best chance, I feel like, against weenie decks and zombies, illusions, and humans. But let's keep moving. Next up in line is Banefire. If you're running a creatureless build of this deck, you really want to try to hold off on this until late game, and you want to use it to burn your opponent. Like, this is one of your kill shots. It's an X spell, and the clutch part is that since you're going to be saving this for late game, it can't be countered and the damage can't be prevented. So let's say that they have you in a pariah lock. Let's say that they have some, I don't even know. There's a lot of little ways that someone can sneak out of being killed, and this prevents them all as far as I'm aware. It can't be countered by spells or abilities, and the damage cannot be prevented. I mean, I don't know how more clearly they could say that. It's a way to squeeze through that final damage. Remand is such a crazy card. It is delay. You pay 2 mana, counter target spell, and that spell goes back into your opponent's hand, and you draw a card. That's really solid. I mean, it's just delay and it's just card draw, but it's just slowing them down so that you can get closer to wiping the board or playing like your 1 or 2 threats that this deck has. It's just such a funky card that works. Like, I haven't pulled it out and played without it yet, but it seems like a must. You need the card draw in this build, in this deck. Here's Starstorm, another board wipe. It's kind of akin to Earthquake, where as in Earthquake doesn't cost 2 red, and it doesn't hit creatures with flying, and it hits players. Starstorm costs 1 more mana, it doesn't hit players, and it even hits flying creatures. You also have the option to cycle it for 3 mana and just draw a card instead. So that's a nice little alternative too that you can do at the end of your opponent's turn. This one is an instant and Earthquake is a sorcery, so keep that in mind when you're making your super tough choices, because if you're playing with every board wipe in this deck, you're playing with so many cards. Nah, we'll just keep moving. I wanted to address every board wipe, but we won't. In terms of things that I'm not playing with so far, I'm not running 1 Pongify, and I'm not running these 2 Peaks. It's pay 1, blue, look at target player's hand and draw a card. If you're playing the super cutesy Turbo Kiln Fiend build with the wee Dragonauts, I can see why you would want to run Peak. And yeah, like turn 2, Kiln Fiend, turn 3, wee Dragonauts, turn 4, if you had enough islands, you could Peak, remand your own Peak, and then re-Peak. And you just drew a lot of cards, and you casted 3 of those instants or sorceries. So this guy would have gotten +9/+0, and your wee Dragonauts would have gotten +6/+0. So that's 7 there, +8. 7 + 8 is 15. That's a lot of quick damage, but I mean, that's a turn 4 move. So yeah, you can play that cutesy build to where you're just playing all the cheapest instants and sorceries and just praying that you can get some really sprinty damage through. For a while I was playing a build that didn't have any of the sweepers either because I didn't want to kill my own Kiln Fiends. And it was fun to play, but I'm still feeling this deck out. Okay, where are we? Here's some backbone staple cards. We got 3 Searing Spears. It's not an Incinerate, it doesn't prevent regeneration, but it's 3 damage to target creature or player. So that's a must. I mean, that's really hard to argue taking out, especially in a creatureless build to where you don't have a lot of chump blockers and you need to be taking things out. Let's see. There's so many cards on this deck, it's crazy, dude. Here's a Swerve, it's 2 mana, change the target of a single spell. Change the target of target spell with a single target. Hey, we heard you like targets. So no matter what spell your opponent is casting, as long as it has a target, you can revert it back to one of their creatures, you can make it revert to them. I mean, that's so sick. You can do it on a divination and make it target you. If they're trying to make you discard cards, you can do it to them. It has a lot of uses, but it doesn't do too much in terms of creatures, and that's why I'm not running it right now. Next in line is this Electrolyze. It's 3 mana, and it pings 2 damage divided anywhere that you want it among creatures or players, and you get to draw a card. This is one of those decks that you're going to play, and you're going to have 7 cards in your hand a lot. Like, you're going to have 5 to 7 cards in your hand the majority of the time if you hit the right cards. But if you go first and turn 1 do nothing, turn 2 remand whatever they were going to do, and then turn 3 electrolyze their board and hopefully kill 2 creatures and then draw a card, you're sitting pretty. That's how this deck wants to play. Okay, so far in terms of counter spells, we've only touched on remand, but this deck does have memory lapse also, and it's really close to it. but really different at the same time. Same mana casting cost, same instant, and you counter target spell. But if you counter it, instead of it just going back to their hand, it goes on top of their library. And now we're getting to, it almost feels like Dimir, because you can decide if you would rather draw a card or if you would rather put a card back on top of your opponent's library. And in a crazy way, those are the exact same thing. Like, that's a net card. This way, you're denying them a card draw, and this way, you're drawing a card. So, I don't know, I even feel a little fishy about not running all 6, because they're almost the same thing. But let's keep this moving. Where are we? Straight up counter spell. Oh, not even, it's a cancel. So it's 3 mana, counter target spell. It's a little odd they didn't give you a straight up counter spell and you gotta wait for 3 mana. And some people on the forums are already complaining about that 2 blue hurting out the gate. So if you're running like a very red centric build where you're running low on islands, you might not even be able to run cancels. You got a Volcanic Geyser. This deck has a lot of X spells. So there's an alternative build to this deck also, to where you're probably running all sweepers and all X spells, and maybe some obscure counters just to delay to make sure that your sweepers are efficient. And then you just try to make it until you can start dropping these spells for 7 damage. And if you're hitting your opponent for 7 damage with all this card draw, you're going to be able to pop them for 7, 8, and then 9, and hopefully that'll be game. But I don't know. It's 2 red, X damage to target creature or player, and it's an instant. But right now I'm running Banefires over it with their damage prevention and the fact that you can squeeze in more than 5 on X and then it can't be countered or prevented. That's so strong. So that's why I was able to talk myself out of that. Where are we? There's Char. We'll get to that in a second. I've told you I'm not running these Dragonauts. I don't know, man. I just love the fact that you can run a creatureless or nearly creatureless build, and so many decks just got messed up. If your opponent plays with pacifisms, if they play with doom blades, if they play with claustrophobias, I mean, every deck has creature removal. And in this meta, so many decks are playing creature removal. If you're in the mirror match and you're playing against Dodge and Burn and they're running all the board wipes and you play no creatures, you're in a sweet spot. But then at the same time, you better hope that you're not running any of the board wipes. I don't know. This deck is just really weird. I feel like it's akin to Dimir, to where skill is the main determining factor. And you're going to make mistakes and you're going to learn from those mistakes. And it just seems really fun to play. But let's keep moving. Here's Char. This one's a little bite you back. It's 3 mana, instant speed, so that's nice. It deals 4 damage to target creature or player and 2 damage to you. So we're back to some of those masochistic cards like Earthquake. And there's a couple other that we're going to come across that will hurt you too. This deck likes to keep you low on life. Like, they want you to win by the skin of your teeth. It's really peculiar. Here's another example. Cerebral Vortex. 3 mana. Target player draws 2 cards, and then Cerebral Vortex deals damage to that player equal to the number of cards he has drawn this turn. So, you don't want to do this on your turn. And this was in old versions of Magic. DOTP for you cool kids. But you always want to cast this on your opponent's turn, because you want to do it on their turn if you're targeting you, so that you just draw 2 cards and take 2 damage, and that's a little wishy-washy. Or if it's a kill shot and you can kill them the next turn and you don't have to worry about the cards they're going to draw, you do it like a Sign in Blood to them, but a little bit heavier. They drew 1 card at the beginning of their turn. That makes them draw 2 cards, and then they take damage. They'll take 3 damage. I kind of got distracted in thought, wondering if that would pair with other things. And it could in a weird way. Like, you could use a Cerebral Vortex on your opponent after targeting them with a Compulsive Research. So they would draw 3 cards, I don't know, maybe that's a little obscure combo or like a really funky win condition. But you could compulsive research them, make them draw 3 cards, and then do this on them. They would draw another 2 cards, and that would pop them for 5. And they just drew 5 cards. So make sure it's the right move. That's rarely going to be the right play. Same thing goes for Browbeat. You could play a Browbeat and then feign that you targeted your opponent on accident and then pause it, or even say something on the microphone like, oh, I messed up. And then they wouldn't take the 5 damage and you would surprise them and neither would you. And then they would draw 3 cards and then pop them with that. But those are 2 very, very rare situations. I think there's one more card draw spell while we're talking about this really dumb tactic. So if you made it to turn 9 and you needed a weird kill shot for 7, that's a lot of damage actually. You could opportunity them. No, it would be, yeah, 7 damage. So on their turn you would opportunity them, they would draw 4 cards, and then you would hit them with this, wherever she is, Cerebral Vortex, and then they would get popped for 7. But they also just drew 7 cards, so be very afraid. But let's keep moving. That's a weird one-of card that's real situational, and I like it, but I'm not running it right now. I'm just kind of paranoid about taking so much damage, but I don't know. I almost just talked myself into running that card. Let's keep rolling. We touched base on Char. Here's another card draw mechanic, and this is basically why I'm not running Cerebral Vortex. This one is a sorcery speed spell, 3 mana, target player draws 3 cards, and then discards 2 cards unless they discard a land. So ideally, you're always going to be hitting yourself with this, drawing 3 cards, and then dumping an extra land. And you just paid 3 mana to draw 2 cards. It's basically, I don't know. I think I like this more than Divination, because you hit that 3rd card, and then you hopefully just discard a land. I think I like this more than Divination. Let's keep rolling. Browbeat. How peculiar. 3 mana. Any player may have Browbeat deal 5 damage to him or her. If no one does, target player draws 3 cards. 90% of the time you're going to want to target yourself, and a lot of the times your opponent is going to take the 5 damage. Because with this deck, if you're drawing 3 cards, you're going to hit more card draw and you're going to hit more burn. So it's such this weird trade-off of them losing a quarter of their life to prevent you from drawing 3 cards. It's always a tough call for your opponent. Next in line is Sulphurous Blast. This is your bread and butter removal, and right now I have all 4 of these in this deck. It's 4 mana, and it does have some choices. This deck is packed full of choices. 4 mana, instant. Sulphurous Blast deals 2 damage to each creature and player. So this is another one that's kind of like an Earthquake, kind of like a Cerebral Vortex, to where you're hurting yourself a little bit. The main thing is if you cast this spell during your main phase, it deals 3 damage instead of just 2. So if you basically play this as a sorcery during your main phase, it'll hit everything in play, including creatures with flying, for 3 damage. And both players, so that's a little bonus since you're playing Burn. Very weird though, very peculiar. I don't even have any 5-drops in this deck right now, and I'm also experimenting with both Draining Wilks. Well, might as well read it. 6 mana for a 1/1 flyer with flash, and when it enters play, counter target spell, and you put X +1/+1 counters on Draining Wilk, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. It's 6 mana for a 1/1, and then it gets XX. So in a perfect world, you went first. You played your 6th land on turn 6, not missing a single land drop, and you said go. It's your opponent's turn, and he has been holding out on his super fatty 6-drop. He plays it, you counter it, and now you have a 7/7 flying illusion. Your opponent just tapped out, and now it's your turn. This creature just lost Summoning Sickness because it was in play on your opponent's turn and yada yada, so you're swinging in with a 7/7 flyer. Keep in mind we were talking about how this deck has no creatures in it, so I don't know, like you're basically banking on the fact that they're going to remove it next turn, and that's going to slow down their momentum a little bit too. But who knows, maybe they can't handle a 7/7 flyer. Worst case scenario, in that specific perfect scenario, which is weird to say, they're tapped out. You countered their fat spell, and you're about to pop them for 7, and then next turn they have obligations to kill this. Meanwhile, you're just drawing more cards, and now you're close to hitting them with a critty Banefire. Hopefully. Let's see, what's my cherry on top? Oh, I'm also running this alternative to Draining Welk. I don't know what's more threatening, but it's the same kind of deal. Turn 6, you tell your opponent to go, they play something for 6 mana, you counter it, and you draw 6 cards. I love the flavor text that just says my brain hurts. So that's one way to build this deck, and I don't even know. It's really middling. Like, I took out a single of some cards, and it's a nice, fun build to play. But let's keep scrolling, because there's a lot of stuff that I'm not playing with that we haven't got to touch base on. If you are a counterspell fiend, you can run these Thought Binds. It's 3 mana, counter target spell with converted mana cost 4 or less. Most of the time, you're going to be countering something like turn 3, and it's going to be a threat. But late game, you can top deck this, and it won't be that perfect card that you hope for. It's just a little situational, and it has me scared, so I'm not running it. When you think about it, it's almost just like... It's kind of akin to like a Searing Spear, but for counter spells, to where you don't even worry about the card's power or toughness necessarily, like you do with Burn. You don't worry about its toughness, you worry about its casting cost. So it's just this weird early game counter. I wish it was cheaper, and I feel like it's going to be a card that a lot of people are going to pull pretty quick. I dropped down to only 3 of these Chars, and I don't know, maybe that's a misplay or a miscalculation. I'm just doing that right now. Here's another board sweep. There are so many sweepers that you can play in this deck. This is 3 mana, Volcanic Fallout can't be countered, and it deals 2 damage to each creature and player. I mean, this card obviously is looking at the blue decks, but it's really weird, dude. Like, sometimes this isn't even the perfect play that you would hope. And that goes for zombies, illusions, and humans, which are the big 3. If you're playing against zombies and you play this, you're gonna wipe off some of their dudes as long as they don't have too many +1/+1 pumpers out already. But even the things that you are gonna kill against zombies are gonna come back. And I guess you can say that against everything in this deck. But it's weird only popping things for 2. Humans are going to be able to outpace you pretty quick with their Champion of the Parish, with an Honor the Pure. And all of a sudden, this 2 damage is insufficient. So that's why I'm leaning towards other wipes. Even against blue, if they get a Lord of the Unreal out, and then clone it with their Phantasmal Image or whatever it's called, that thing is already a 3/3 that can't be targeted, so now you're in a bad spot. So right now, in terms of board wipes, I'm running Earthquakes, which work, except against flyers, which is another loophole. I'm running these Starstorms, which you can get outpaced against. Like, if you want to wipe the board for 3, that's going to cost you 5 mana. And if your opponent went first, you're in such a bad spot. They're going to be growing faster than you can wipe them, and I've had that happen, and it's such a terrible feeling. Where are the rest of my sweeps? Here we go. Your Sulfuric Blast is one of the better ones, but if your opponent went first, like, when it's their turn 4, you wiping the board for 3 sometimes is barely going to squeak by to clear things out, and a lot of the times you're going to end up doing a 2-for-1 kind of thing that makes you feel foolish. But with all this card draw, you can get away with some 2-for-1s. Let's keep rolling. That's my little end of that rant about Volcanic Fallout. It's not as good as I was hoping. Invoke the Firemind is another spell that is just super late game geared. I can't find the sweet spot for it, but you definitely don't want to cast this on turn 3. You don't want to cast it on turn 4. Turn 5 even seems dumb. Like, spending 5 mana to deal 2 damage or draw 2 cards is terrible. So you want this to be like a turn 7 play, a turn 8 play. Turn 7 spending 4 mana, or turn 7 spending 7 mana to draw 4 cards or deal 4 damage is like where it starts to trend. Maybe 3 is fine. But if you're going to do it for 3, you might as well be running Opportunity. You're spending the same amount of mana, it's less color selective, and you're drawing 1 more card. So the thing that's cool about this is that there's 2 of them. Ugh, it's a sorcery. And that's an instant. I don't know. I can just really talk myself out of running these. Games, if you're going to lose with Dodge and Burn, you're going to lose early. In my experience, in like this 48 hours of gameplay. If you lose with Dodge and Burn, they're going to overwhelm you. It's going to be a sprint. Like, if you get into a long game, normally you're going to have so much card advantage and direct damage that you can hang. But if they just get the jump on you and you got too many Invoke the Fire Mines in your hand that you're waiting till turn 7 to play, you're going to be hurting. I pulled out 1 Compulsive Research. That's just me middling and not knowing what to do. Who knows if that's the right play. I pulled out all 3 Breaking Points. Breaking Point is a board wipe, but it's kind of like Browbeat. So we got these 2 red cards that you can play on turn 3 to where your opponent has the option of taking a whole bunch of damage or dealing with the repercussions. In this one, instead of you drawing 3 cards, you destroy all creatures and they can't be regenerated. It's a tough call. It will make your opponent think. I mean, I can see you playing with this in the creatureless build, but it'd be really crazy to play with Browbeat in a build to where you were banking on these Kiln Fiends and banking on these Wee Dragonauts. So that's just a really funky play. Let's say you were playing that sprinty creature and instants and sorceries build. A turn 2 Kiln Fiend, a turn 3 Wee Dragonauts, and then a turn 4 Breaking Point is going to have your opponent in a weird spot. Well, that my recording got a little geeky there. So let's say they have a lot of creatures on the board, and maybe they've been attacking and you've just been taking the damage, which sounds about right. So turn 2 Kiln Fiend, turn 3 Dragonauts, turn 4 you drop a Breaking Point. Let's say that they take the 6 damage and you just played that sorcery. So your Dragonauts got buffed. Now they're gonna swing for 3. Oh, come on, Reflector, stick with me. Kiln Fiend gets a buff, so he goes up to a 4. And they just took that 6 to keep their side of the board alive. So you're swinging in for 4 plus 7. That's, no, 4 plus 3, that's the 7. Plus another 6, because they took the damage to keep all the creatures alive. Of course, it would be a little bit shady for them to do that in a situation to where it would buff your Kiln Fiend and your Dragonaut so much. But, I mean, we're talking about Magic, dude. No game is the same. And if you like playing these fun decks that aren't linear, that have an infinite amount of paths, eventually you're going to find yourself in that situation and be like, holy crap, this is the right play to make in this specific situation. And them taking 6 plus that 7, 13 damage, that's really heavy for 1 turn. Especially when they're playing against a burn deck. They probably wouldn't even make that call, but it's gonna happen in 1 game. Okay, let's try to keep moving as these cards start getting really skippy. I can't believe I can't even record looking through a Magic deck. Jesus Christ. Here's Pillage. This is 3 mana, and this is an old school card. Old school land destruction. 3 mana, destroy target artifact or land. It can't be regenerated. I don't really get what that regeneration mechanic is hinting towards, but at some point there's going to be an artifact deck and it looks like they might be regenerating. If there were more pillages, I would run them, but I'm not going to run a singleton. And sometimes I don't like using that logic. Okay, here's a point of great debate. If you're running a creatureless deck, it almost seems like you would want to run Reigns of Power. I mean, you can almost trick your opponent into thinking that they're getting the advantage with creatures and that they're going to overwhelm you. And yeah, like you can make them think that they're winning and that they're just going to be able to dump their entire hand. Namely, humans, illusions, and zombies. Those are the ones that are going to run against you like that. The elf deck might too. But you can feign weakness and then try to surprise them with a Reigns of Power. I'm probably going to work that in my like perfect alpha build of this deck for the meta, but right now I'm not playing with it. I mean, it'd be so cool to do a breaking point. Oh man, I'm just talking myself into it. It'd be so cool to throw out a breaking point and have them take the 6 damage because they have a Champion of the Parish. They have some tokens from that little, whatever it is called, the one that puts the 2 tokens into play that I'm blanking on. And then they played something else, like a Mentor of the Meek or something weird. So you do a breaking point and think that you want them to take the 6 damage, but they think that you want them to wipe the board. So they take the 6 damage, and then next turn attack you for a lot. And then next turn, you might be able to Reigns of Power for the win. Hopefully. If not, you're probably dead after that. It's kind of doubtful that you'll be able to swing for 14. They must have had some like super strong hand, but that could be a turn 4 kill in a perfect world. And you had turn 1 and 2 to try to do something useful. Okay, so some of these cards that we've been looking at so far, oh yeah, while we're talking about Reigns of Power, with all the card draw in this deck, you're going to hit it. I hope. With your remands, with your electrolyzes, with your compulsive researches, with your browbeats, maybe even an overwhelming intellect for 1 billion. You're going to be drawing a lot of cards, so hopefully you'll be able to hit that singleton and feign some kind of weakness to the point to where you can make that be your kill shot. It's one of the best kind of victories. So, it's fun. Okay, here's something, the next card in line does have a little bit in common with Reigns of Power. This is Stolen Goods, and if you love the concept of winning with your opponent's creatures, this is another one of those kind of cards. Like, there's a build of, there's a couple decks in this Magic 2014 to where you can win with your opponent's stuff. You can do it with the zombie deck if you take out a lot of the zombies and play like a Reanimator build with the Reanimates, the Rise from the Dark Realms, that Grave something. There's a 3-drop that can do it too. This deck has something kind of akin to that, to where you can use your opponent's stuff against them. And I don't know, I really want to try a build to where it would have Peek in it. And turn 1, I'm going to look at your hand. And now I know what spells I need to counter and what spells I'm going to steal. I know when I'm going to swerve. And I know if it's going to be me swerving something that's bad for me to make it bad for you. Or I know if I'm going to swerve something that would be good for you and making it good for me instead. So that seems really fun and pleasant. What's next in line? I mean, obviously Reigns of Power does that by using your opponent's cards against them, but here's the next in line. This is Stolen Goods, 4 mana for a sorcery. Target opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card. So they're never going to do this very much. Don't think that you're going to mill them to death or anything legit. And until end of turn, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost. So, it's a sorcery. That's a little wishy-washy. But turn 4, you just start flipping cards off the top of your opponent's deck and pray that you hit something that has a high mana casting cost. Because you want to hit a good card, and it's really random. Like, you're basically, even though you're doing it off the top of your opponent's deck, you're looking at it, you're basically grabbing any one random card that's not a land and playing it. And I don't know what to think about that. That's really weird. There's only one of them, and it's a sorcery. I just don't know what to think. It's way better than this. I don't even know how to pronounce that. Mnemonic Wall. This is 5 mana for an 0/4 defender. And when it enters the battlefield, you can return target instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hand. I really wish they just gave this deck Archaeomancers instead. This Mnemonic Wall costs 1 extra mana, and it does the exact same thing. So instead, I mean, it's a little bit cool that it doesn't have the 2 blue in it, but I really think I would rather have an Archaeomancer. That's all I really have to say about it. I can't even think of anything else. I mean, it's okay that it's a 0/4, but you're playing this on turn 5. If your opponent went first, this is what you play? This is what you play to slow their momentum? I don't know. This deck does not have any 5-drops in it in the build that I'm running right now. And there's only 3 5-drops in the entire deck. So that makes me a little leery and makes me feel like this should almost be in it somehow, but I don't know. It is card advantage, and in this deck, you're going to be bouncing back something that makes you draw cards. So it's so fishy, man. I could almost see myself throwing it in, but if you're playing a creatureless build, you're banking, or you're setting yourself up for this to get removed. So maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing. I don't know. I just think it's an average card, and this deck has too much good stuff in it right now for me to get away with playing with that. Future Sight is worthy of being in this deck, but I'm not playing it right now. I mean, if you're playing the turbo instant and sorcery build with your Kiln Fiends and your Dragonauts, if you have a whole bunch of low mana casting cost stuff and you've wiped the board and you have one of those little creatures in play, things are about to get pretty hairy, because Future Sight is one of those cards to where you just start sprinting through your deck. I mean, your lands are going to be what mess you up. Every time that you hit a land, you're going to be neutered. You're not going to be able to keep going. But if you hit a sweet spot of just racking up some of these low mana spells, I mean, you're going to be moving so quick. I mean, there's some low drops. A Pongify. You would smile if you saw a Pongify on top. A Peak would be great. A Kiln Fiend, play it. You could Earthquake for 0. If you were hurting, you could Banefire for 0. You can't remand something. Oof, you even could. God, that's so crazy. I feel like I've already harped on this, but you could Pongify something, and then after you cast Pongify, remand. If that was the next card on top of your library, you could remand your own Pongify and then recast Pongify, and you just drew a card off of it. Even crazier if you did it with Peak. You're going to be drawing so many cards. And I'm starting to realize that every time that you have a land on top of your library with a Future Sight in play, that's when you want to draw cards. Or do a shuffle mechanic with your land grab. But Future Sight is a power card. It's one of those things to where if you have the game on lock, it almost seems like a win more kind of thing. It doesn't even seem like a very win by the skin of your teeth, because you already have to be comfortable to play Future Sight, because it does nothing for you on turn 5. So hopefully you wipe the board on turn 4, and then turn 5 Future Sight, and you can just handle taking the damage that they're going to hit you with. Okay, we're getting to some super dope card that I'm not running, and it's insane. Like, this card is amazing. 6 mana for a devil, a 4/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, return an instant or sorcery card at random from your graveyard to your hand. So let's scroll through and the cards that I'm running so far. So you could bounce back a Pongify, an Earthquake, a Banefire, a Remand, a Starstorm, a Searing Spear, Electrolyze, a Cancel, Char, Compulsive Research, Browbeat, Sulfuric Blast. Jesus, that was like every card. That literally was every card. Oh my god, I'm just having the epiphany that every card in my deck is an instant or sorcery. Oh my god, I guess that's what happens when you make a creatureless build, besides these draining Welks. So every turn, you're returning a random card back from your graveyard to your hand. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Charmbreaker Devils get +4/+0. +4/+0. It's cool, but it's not that cool. I mean, Kiln Fiends cost 2 mana, and they get +3/+0. So you're spending an extra 4 mana. Where'd they go? You spend an extra 4 colorless mana to give it +3/+2, and it gets an extra +1/+0 every time you cast an instant or sorcery, and every turn you're bouncing back a random one. I mean, I could see this being like an Alpha Strike kill spell to where in one turn you're casting so much stuff. A turn 4 board wipe, turn 5 Future Sight, turn 6 Charmbreaker, and then turn 7 you would just need to play, how many? 4? If you played 4 instant or sorceries, 4 times 4 is 16, plus 4 is 20. So you could potentially swing in for 20, but I know that's kind of a stretch. But at the same time, oh my god, I don't know. It could be a win con. I'm not playing with it right now. I have lost to it. It's just really weird. Here is another card for the super crazy kill your opponent with their own creatures build. 6 mana, instant. If a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, it enters the battlefield under your control instead. Okay, so this is something that whenever your opponent casts a creature, you're gonna pause. And in response to them casting that creature, you cast Gather Specimens. Now that creature enters the battlefield under your control, and you just pray to God that you were able to cast this on an Avenger of Zendikar, or, I mean, that's the best possible scenario, or something that has an enter the battlefield effect, because now it enters the battlefield under your control, and you get all those tokens or whatever benefits the creature has. Not playing with it right now. It's really weird to me, but I don't know. That 3 blue's a little daunting. Opportunity, we've touched on this. That art is really cool with that like sky scene through that temple head thing. Anyways, 6 mana, target player draws 4 cards. You could hit turn 6, tell your opponent to go, and then feign that you have a counter spell, and then at the end of their turn, opportunity. Or if they cast, if you did have a counter spell, and they just didn't cast anything that was worthy of it at the end of their turn, opportunity, and draw 4 cards. I would definitely recommend doing this on your opponent's turn, ideally at the end of their turn, so that you don't have to deal with, well, it still looks like you could counterspell something, and when you do it on your opponent's turn, if you go over 7 cards in your hand, you're going to be fine, because you won't have to discard anything. And then on your turn, you'll draw a card and potentially have, like, I don't know, if you went and had 6 cards in your hand when you cast this and drew 4 cards, that puts you at 10, and then on your turn you drew another one, you're at 11. That's like ridiculous. You're not supposed to be able to do that. Okay, coming to the end here. Here's Fire Blast. This is 6 mana, and it's an old school card. I think it came out in Visions. 6 mana, instant. Fire Blast deals 4 damage to target creature or player. You may sacrifice 2 mountains rather than pay Fire Blast mana cost. So if you're playing a hyper burn build, or if you just like pulling off those surprising kills, you're going to want to run this. I don't know. It's almost worth running as is. Like turn 6, popping something for 4 isn't that bad. Compare it to Char, and I guess I'll just show it on this bottom one so we can keep bouncing back and forth. But Char is 3 mana and deals 4 damage to target creature or player, and 2 damage to you. So instead of having it deal 2 damage to you, it costs double. And that's the truth. But Fire Blast has that alternative casting cost of just sacrificing 2 mountains. So a little weird. It's very rare that you would want to cast this when it isn't going to be a good game card. So you either want to cast this when it's going to make you win or make you not die. And those are the only 2 situations to where it's like worthy and legit and will pay off for sacrificing the 2 mountains. I don't know. I almost look at it as like something close to a Final Fortune, or something that you'll hold in your hand a lot of the time and not cast. And yeah, that's the end of that. Okay, hey, we heard you like winning with your opponent's stuff. Here's Spell Twine. This is 6 mana. Exile target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard and target instant or sorcery card from an opponent's graveyard. Copy those cards. Cast copies, if able, without paying their mana costs. Exile Spell Twine. Okay, really crazy. Turn 6, this is a sorcery, so you have to play it on your turn, but you're about to do some serious stuff. You're going to look through your graveyard, and any one of these cards that you have cast so far, you're going to be able to recast. Every X spell is taken out of the equation. I believe that if you hit an X spell, it's going to get cast for 0. Could be wrong about that, but keep that in mind when you're building your deck if you're running this. Because I'm already running 2 Banefires and 2 Starstorms. But I don't know, man. There's a possibility to where if you're running all those X spells that I just listed, plus Volcanic Geyser, plus the red blues, where are those baddies, and Invoke the Firemind, all of those are cards that are not targets. So that's a little funky. But here's the things that are. You could do a Pongify if you're desperate to kill a creature. But then that ape is going to be 3/3 and attack next turn, so keep that in mind. You can't do a Remand. And you can't do counter spells. So keep that in mind. So it's basically burn spells or card draw spells that don't have X's in the casting cost. So you can reuse a Searing Spear and bop something. You can reuse an Electrolyze, draw a card, and pop 2 damage anywhere you want. You could do a Char, hit something for 4 and pop yourself for 2 again. So be careful with that. Compulsive Research would be a really crazy one, and just draw some more cards and discard a land. You could do a Browbeat. My god, that would make people really mad. Especially if they took 5. I don't know what would be worse, them taking 10 or you drawing 6 cards. Ideally, they would do one of each. I think that would be the ultimate setup. So that's one of the best cards to do it to. Yeah. Okay, so Sulfuric Blast would be a cool one, because the card that we're talking about right now, I already forgot the name of it. Where is this little baddie? There it is, Spell Twine. 6 mana. So on turn 6, you cast Spell Twine, and then you target your Sulfuric Blast. So now you're popping everything for another 3 damage. Keep in mind this does hit you, so if you cast this at sorcery speed last time, you've just dealt another 3 damage to yourself for a total of 6. This deck loves to hurt itself. So crazy. So that's a very odd card. I mean, I don't even know what else to say. You do... Well, we're not even done talking about it. You hit your opponent with this too. So you get to look through their graveyard and copy an instant or sorcery. And hopefully they've played one. If you're playing an elf deck, maybe they didn't even play one. If you're playing zombies, hopefully they played, I don't even know, maybe a Sign in Blood, maybe a Vampiric Tutor. Keep in mind, both of those are going to make you lose life, so we're back to you hurting. If you're playing against zombies, you can't even use a Doomblade, so that's really weird. Very situational. Each deck, you're going to be doing different stuff. And this is one of those cards that goes for the deck that would want to use their opponent's stuff against them. I love the concept of those decks. It's just so different and so much variety in every game. You never know how a game is going to go, and I think that's why I like it. The bad news, you exile Spell Twine. I would love if you could get in an infinite loop of recursion, and I don't even care how you do it. I mean, if you brought that back with a Charmbreaker Devil, that would be dope. I would play with Mnemonic Walls and just pray that I would get that card back and get to cast it again. I don't know. I think the best version is doing something like Browbeat, or something that's going to make you draw cards, and then using something from your opponent's graveyard to hurt them. But whatever. Crazy situational. Okay. I have never cast this Djinn Illuminatus yet, so all I'm gonna do is just like theory craft about it. It's crazy. 7 mana, 3/5 flying Djinn. Each instant and sorcery spell you cast has replicate. The replicate cost is equal to its mana cost. I can't even click info to specifically show you what replicate means, but it means every spell that you cast can be recast again as many times as you want, as long as you pay the casting cost again. So turn 7 this. Turn 8, you could Browbeat twice. So you're either going to draw 6 cards, or your opponent's going to take 10 damage, or they're going to take 5 and you're going to draw 3. Did you make it to turn 9? You're going to Browbeat 3 times. And now we're talking about good game territory. It's just crazy, dude. You got to go through every single card in this deck, and let's do it. And we'll do it after we talk about this. Okay, so you like to win with your opponent's stuff. Turn 7, enchanted creature becomes yours. And it gets +2/+2 in flying. It's cool that it gives it flying, because that makes it dodge your earthquakes. And it's cool that it gives it +2/+2, because every X spell that you cast now is going to be harder to kill things. That +2/+2 would also put it out of range of sulfuric blasts and all kinds of goodies. Little late game with turn 7, and I don't know if I would rather just have a mind control for 5 mana, but very weird. Okay, let's go through the entire deck now and look at every instant or sorcery that you could recast with Djinn Illuminatus. If you, whatever the ability is called, replicate, it must be a new school ability because I'm not familiar with it. But if you replicate a Spell Twine, that is insane. I mean, that's a turn 12 play, but don't act like you've never played a game to where you got up to 12 mana. It happens, and that would be so crazy that your opponent might quit. I don't know how it would work with Fire Blast. If you can cast this card by its alternative mana cost through this, then that's sick. So, I mean, imagine if you had 4 mountains into play and 3 islands, and cast this. And then, same turn, sacrifice 2 mountains to cast Fire Blast. I don't know if it would let you replicate Fire Blast again. And that's really confusing to me. If anyone's still watching this vid, feel free to comment, because eventually someone's going to get in that situation. And I'm really curious to see what's going to happen. I'm leaning towards no, but I'm hoping towards yes. But let's keep rolling. You could opportunity and recast it if you're at 12 mana. That's just disgusting. If you're... There's no way that this would work. I mean, you would need to do it in response to your opponent casting a creature. And then... Okay, I just had an epiphany. You don't need to cast this twice. This card negates your opponent from casting creatures entirely if you do it before they cast a creature. If you want to steal a creature, you can. If you just don't want them to play a creature, cast this flat out. And let's say that they cast something that would put tokens into play. You cast this in response, and if any creature, it basically says if any, if I get this right, if any creature would enter the battlefield under an opponent's control this turn. It doesn't just say the first creature, or if one creature. There's no limiter like that. It says if a creature would enter the battlefield under opponent's control this turn, it comes into play under your control. So there's no reason to replicate this. This card doesn't need to be replicated. Let's keep scrolling. This would be amazing. Oh my god. Turn 7, that Djinn. Turn 8, double stolen goods. And you're getting 2 of their cards? That's amazing. I would love to do that. And I would love to spell twine a stolen goods. Oh my god. Talk about just using all their cards against them. I don't know why I love that concept. I just love to beat someone with their own cards. And you never know how you're going to win against each deck. It's just so crazy fun and random. Let's keep rolling. Reigns of Power, no way. You wouldn't. That doesn't benefit from being cast multiple times. Okay, Pillage. That is so dope. In a weird way. I mean, if you're at turn 9, you can play this on turn 7, and then turn 9, you could cast Pillage 3 times. But by the time you're that far late in the game, it's going to be really weird. The only deck that would be super strong against would be the Dragon deck and killing their 3 swamps. But any multicolor deck, you can rain on their parade a little bit by killing 3 creatures. I mean, killing 3 lands that they need. I don't know. Maybe if you're playing against the Samurai deck and you light up all 3 of their clutchest artifacts, that would be neat, but that's pretty odd, pretty rare. Breaking Point. Don't even know how this would work, because you would need to recast it back to back to back to back. I'm under that impression. I could be wrong, but I think whenever you replicate, you need to do it right then. It's not like you can, I don't think that you would be able to cast a Breaking Point, and I don't think that it would resolve, and you would wait for your opponent to make the choice, and then I wish you would have the option to redo it, but I think it needs to be back to back. So maybe, I don't know, maybe there's a situation where you would want to cast it and then replicate it, and your opponent would obviously just let everything die. Opposed to taking 6 and then letting everything die. Or they would take 12 and keep everything. So, I don't know, it basically doubles down, which is odd. I mean, if you did it 3 times, turn 7 Djinn, turn 9 Breaking Point for 3 copies, or 2 copies of it, so there's 3 versions of it, they're either going to wipe the board or take 18 damage. So that's like, good game. That's a really weird one. Alright, let's say you popped off 3 compulsive researches, you're drawing 9 cards, and you're definitely going to hit 3 lands. So you're going to discard 3 lands, and you just drew 9 cards. Good game. And you just put 6 cards in your hand. 3 are not lands. 6 are good cards, hopefully. That's sick. Invoke the Firemind's really weird. I think with X spells, it wouldn't work. And it would be a very weird situation where you would want to do it with this. I think there's probably a build to where you would play with this Djinn Illuminatus. And let's just skip to the very, very other end of the field here. If you got a Djinn Illuminatus in play, and you have a Kiln Fiend out, and let's just say you hit a Pongify. Nah, Pongify is a bad example. Let's just say a Peak. You could cast Peak over and over and over until you're out of blue mana. So let's say you cast that Djinn Illuminatus on turn 7. Turn 8, let's say you're sitting crazy pretty and have 5 islands. You could cast Peak 5 times. And this guy just got plus 15. I mean, that's crazy. If you only had red mana, you could do a Banefire for 0. Or an Earthquake for 0. And let's say you had 5 red. And then recast it 4 times for 0. And same thing. This guy just got plus 15. So that's really weird. That Djinn, you could even do it with Pongify in a weird way. I don't know how that would work out though. You could either just Pongify a creature and then each time kill the 3/3 ape over and over and over. But that's really sketchy and really weird, and you would need to swing in with like a dragon, like a wee Dragonauts instead. Or have something to kill the monkey at the very, very end if you're going to swing in with this. But this is one of the craziest decks in the game, in my opinion. Very odd that you would want to replicate this over and over. If you replicate Char too many times, you're going to kill yourself, but I mean, if you're ahead in life, that turn 7 Djinn, turn 9, char, you pop them for 12 and you take 6. I don't know what I think about that. Doesn't work with counters. You could do Cerebral Vortex, but same thing. It's almost like a Char, but with card draw involved. Volcanic Geyser is a weird one. Memory Lapse wouldn't really be good. I don't even know how Remand would work. You could almost get in this infinite loop of like remanding your own remands, and I have no idea what would happen with that. That's another confusing one. But let's go through the cards on this side. We already touched on Pongify, Earthquake, Banefires. Remands is a confusing one. We'll have to see how that plays out. Starstorm's weird. Searing Spear is what you want. Turn 7, Djinn. Turn 8, Searing Spear 4 times. Good game. Turn 4, Searing Spear. Recast it 3 times. So you just spent 8 mana. That's 4 copies of Searing Spear. 4 times 3 is 12. Swing in with the Djinn. He's only 3. That's kind of weak. So that's 15 damage. Hopefully that would be GG. Let's keep moving. I don't even know if I've talked about cloning the Electrolyze, but that one's neat. And we talked about Char, talked about that, Browbeat. Yeah, I think that's the end of it. This deck is so funky, man. I've lost with it a lot. But this deck is the one that's changing the meta. The big 3 decks, Zombies, Illusions, and Humans, that ruined Magic 2014 until this expansion came out, fear this deck. but they can still beat it sometimes. So you got to have the right build and the right mentality. I really want to flirt with the deck build that just solely revolves around using your opponent's stuff against them. That is the best, most fun victories that you can pull off, but I don't even know how it would work. That's it for this vid. This has been a dodge and burn deck list and card analysis and rant. If you want to copy this build, then just look at it, and I'm running 11 islands and 12 mountains, but this is from far a perfect build. It just seems to be well-rounded and maybe well-balanced for a creatureless build. And that's it for this vid. Thanks for watching. Phone Cats.